I'm very happy to welcome Ezekiel Chidi Odiogo, who's the Investment Officer for Infrastructure Department at the Islamic Development Bank. Thanks a lot for coming in. Could you just first of all very briefly tell us the different approach of the Islamic Development Bank to investment issues compared to, say, a Western development bank?
Yeah, the Islamic Development Bank is founded based on Islamic principles and based on Sharia principles. And so the investment approach that we undertake when we look at projects in different countries is from an Islamic finance point of view, which is guided by the Sharia and law. And what that means is simply the fact that we look at investments more equitably between the beneficiary and the financiers. We don't go into speculative trading. We ensure that our investments are backed by assets, so it makes it more transparent. And we are not into an interest-based investment as well. So these are the clear-cut differences between how we approach projects.
So when you deal with a project itself, how do you deal with the owners of that project who are the beneficiaries of your developmental investment?
So what the bank does is to, maybe it's a power plant, for example, build a power plant based on its name and lays it out to the beneficiary, who then pays according to the terms agreed from the start of the transaction. So in that sense, we do take a risk in the project itself. So that gives you the, like I mentioned before, the approach of more equitable risk and sharing approach to project financing.
Okay, so if you are actually taking ownership of the entire project and then leasing it back and allowing the future owner to then buy it off you, you're essentially taking all the risks to begin with.
Well, it seems so, but obviously in that context, we also ensure we do a proper due diligence to ensure that the contractual and framework or the structure, as well as the project structure in itself, is viable. Okay,
moving on to ICTs and the CIS region, what are you doing here? What interests you about the CIS region?
But in terms of ICT in itself, ICT is a cornerstone of the bank's investment infrastructure strategy. The bank has just gone through a reform which has refocused it to focus on 4 areas, which are ICT, energy, transport and water and the environment. So ICT occupies a very critical role in terms of using it to leverage socio-economic development of our member states. And in the CIS region, like I mentioned, we have 7 countries. We're interested in ICT in this area, especially in the infrastructure side of things, as well as developing the e-services sector in the region.
You mentioned earlier the importance of social development. Could you tell us how you view ICTs in improving social development among people either in the CIS region or internationally?
ICT is a very critical tool, and it's been already accepted. It has a very decisive impact for socio-economic development in different parts of the world. And ICT in itself is not a means in itself. It's a tool to actually achieve socio-economic and development. And part of that is the fact that it does not only enable government to engage with the citizens more effectively and also more cost-effective as well, but it also enables the citizens to better themselves and looking at ICT, promoting trust between government and the citizens, and also reducing some inefficiencies in government service delivery or public service delivery. Internet, the ICT has been very useful in other sectors as well, like telemedicine in the health sector, in the educational sector, providing a bundle of information to people that's never actually been experienced in the past 20 years or 10 years or so.